What is up guys, Taiki here. It's been over a week since this announcement by AVAX about Avalanche Rush happening this week. I've been waiting for weeks to use AAVE. I've bridged over a lot of money to the Avalanche ecosystem for this moment. Can't wait. Let's check out AAVE right now. Where the fuck is it? Alright, jokes aside, Avalanche Rush has been delayed for a week. And I've heard arguments on why this is bearish Avalanche. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it makes Avalanche less bullish in the sense that there was so much hype and so much narrative around AVAX being the next, big L1 play. But I think that hype has kind of died down. So I think, the upside of Avalanche has been muted. Don't get me wrong, I still own a bunch of AVAX. I haven't sold any, and I don't plan on selling any anytime soon. But like those moon boys saying $200 price targets, they're probably gone by now. And I think that, whatever price target you had 2 weeks ago, maybe you should bring it down a little just because there's less excitement in the ecosystem. I mean, Luigi has like a 7-tweet thread on like why this happened. Avalanche wants to take things slower. And I think part of the reason is because, last week, Compound, they had a minor bug in their code that did not put user funds in jeopardy. However, the protocol did mint extra Compound tokens. So, some people that didn't really do anything were able to claim $20 million over the comp, which was pretty insane. And when the founder of Compound is saying things like, send it back to us or I'm going to report you to the IRS, it's definitely not a good look for DeFi. It's not a good look for this guy, Robert. He apologized later, but it's definitely not a good look when you founded a decentralized finance application, but you're threatening people using the IRS to get people to make funds over, right? Your team fucked up, so your team should bear the consequences of that, in my opinion. So, I don't think it's bearish just because the rewards are still coming, right? AAVE is still going to get $20 million over 3 months. Curve is going to get $7 million over the same time span as well. And the best comparison is with Polygon, right? Because AAVE received $40 million over 12 months, $20 million for the first 3 months, and $20 million for the next 9 months. This is a video that I made April 30th about the money printing game on AAVE. This is what you should expect on Avalanche, these rates, right? Just replace the Matic logo with the Avalanche logo. And instead of Matic, it's going to be AVAX, right? So you're going to get paid a bunch of tokens for using AAVE. And I have a bunch of videos prepared for AAVE as well. And on Curve, right, I made this on May 2nd. You should expect a little bit lower rates just because I think, more people are anticipating this. So maybe you're going to get lower rewards. But, when this thing was first launched on Polygon, you were able to earn 42.7% on dollars, which was pretty insane. So maybe you should expect 20 to 40% on Polygon, on Curve, and maybe expect similar rates here, right? So it's gonna be good. You're gonna be paid to borrow, as you saw here, right? I was borrowing Tether at 4%, but I was being paid 16% in Matic. Pretty nuts. And also, AVAX was also listed on Coinbase, and Coinbase is gonna allow for direct withdrawals from decentralized exchange to the Avalanche seed chain, which means that there's a fiat on ramp from Coinbase to from Coinbase to Avalanche, right? Before this, I had to bridge over funds from Matic to Ethereum, then Ethereum to Avalanche, which was kind of a pain. But these are bullish catalysts, right? It's gonna make Avalanche a lot more easier, or it'll make the ecosystem a lot more accessible for retail users that are trying DeFi for the first time. And the bridging numbers, they kind of calm down a bit, but it's still trending up, right? It's green. These 2 dates kind of mess up the aspect ratio here. So I think the best way to track it is by looking at marker.io. I've often said that Avalanche is going to hit $10 billion in TVL. It's still trending. It's almost at $5 million now. And when AAVE launches, when Curve launches, I expect this to get to $10 billion easy. I'm definitely super bullish Avalanche in terms of the TVL that it's going to possess, but I'm less bullish the Avalanche token, if that makes sense, right? Because TVL doesn't really necessarily translate to the price, because a lot of people can bridge over Bitcoin ETH stables and it'll make the TVL go up, but this doesn't necessarily mean that people are just buying Avalanche hand over fist. But it's good for the narrative. It's definitely good for the narrative. And in terms of content, I had so many videos planned for AAVE, but you know, Ava Labs kind of rugged me. Like I had all these slides planned. I'm still gonna make this like when Avalanche comes, but I think money markets and AAVE is like the most important, I guess, like a DeFi primitive for any ecosystem to have, just because it's going to allow for various strategies like this, right? I'll go over this when AAVE launches, if AAVE launches. But you know, I guess like the only thing this delay is bearish is like the credibility of the Avalanche team, right? Because they've been bull posting about this for weeks, and for them to keep bull posting every day and then just delay it once you know, things aren't going their way, you know, it kind of like, you know, the next time they announce a date, I'll be like, okay, bro, I'll believe it when I see it. But you know, I do want to go over one thing that I've been noticing is that, you know, a couple weeks ago, I guess 2 weeks ago, I made this video about like the reason I'm gigalong AVAX, but I don't hold any Joe or YAK tokens. And the entire thesis behind this was that, you know, we often look at the Polygon ecosystem I mean, the reason I was so bullish Avalanche was because, you know, Polygon was bullish when they announced their liquidity mining rewards. And if you look at a case study of, I guess if you compare the gas token, right, Matic to AVAX and Joe to Quick, obviously Joe is a better application than QuickSwap, but you know, just doing a little case study. QuickSwap peaked April 30th, right, at $1,400, whereas Matic, when QuickSwap was peaking, wasn't doing anything. And then it ultimately peaked May 18th, 3 weeks later, and it went on a blow off top. And you know, on May 18th, the price of QuickSwap was like essentially cut in half. So the way I think about things is that at some point, people are going to stop buying these native tokens and dump them into the native gas token as a flight of safety. And you know, do I expect Joe and YAK to outperform in the short term? Yes. However, like what if does history and repeat and AVAX just goes on a crazy run, whereas AVAX and Joe and YAK just doesn't do anything, right? And you can kind of see this in the charts. Right now, like Avalanche is roughly 10% off its all-time highs, whereas Joe, let me zoom in here. Oops. Joe is roughly 35% off its all-time highs. So did Joe top, right? Did YAK top? I think YAK is definitely top. I mean, a good way to think about things is, you know, like looking at the price of YAK divided by the price of AVAX and see like, you know, is YAK outperforming AVAX or is AVAX just like leaving YAK in the dust? And, you know, the question you should be asking yourself is what is this? Like, this is not bullish, right? I mean, this is just like someone is just like selling into this in perpetuity. And if you're taking on more risk by holding like YAK or Joe, like you better expect higher returns. And this is not it, right? I mean, the Joe to AVAX chart is more constructive. And, you know, if I were to hold like personally, like a native like farm token or some sorts in the Avalanche ecosystem, it would be Joe, right? However, you know, you can't ignore history, right? Because history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And though Joe is a better application than QuickSwap, I still do think that at some point people are going to start selling their Joe, right, that they've been farming and rotating it into Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoins, or AVAX. And I think that's kind of like what we're seeing here. I don't like calling tops because they're unpredictable, but you know, maybe perhaps Joe and YAK has topped. And I do expect that Joe and YAK will top before AVAX for that reason. So, you know, just something to consider, not financial advice. And I own a bunch of AVAX. I don't own any Joe or YAK tokens. So that being said, with this slightly, I guess, less bullish tone with the Avalanche ecosystem, I want to talk about rotations, right? Because yes, I often talk about Avalanche, right? Because I mean, that's where all the attention is. That's where all the yield farming opportunity is, like once AAVE launches, right? However, the reason I don't like this moon boy mindset of like Avalanche to $200, you know, like, you know, all these comments is because like, what is the risk that you're taking on to hope that Avalanche gets there? Because let's say you believe in the theory that like Avalanche is gonna get to $200 because Solana did, right? And Avalanche is better than Solana, right? Maybe that's your narrative. But for Avalanche to get to $200, it kind of has to triple from here, right? And get to a market cap of roughly Solana. And how likely is that? Like, how likely is it that Avalanche can flip Polkadot in terms of market cap? Me personally, I don't necessarily think that's that likely. In fact, like, I think Terra is going to be a higher market cap than Avalanche, let's say 6 to 12 months from now. However, I mean, in the short term, I do expect Avalanche to outperform just because that's where all the mind share is going to be. However, you have to think about like what is the next easiest 2x, right? Because for you to hold Avalanche like from here to like let's say the next 2x, you have to hope that Avalanche hits like $140. And for you to take on that risk, that's pretty high, right? I mean, like what are the odds of that? Whereas like if you're holding some other token, let's say Phantom, can you expect Phantom to get to $3, right? And get to like $7.5 billion market cap? And what is the risk that you're taking on compared to the risk that you're taking on holding AVAX, hoping for the next 2x? That's why I often talk about these rotations. And I've already started rotating from Avalanche. I'm not necessarily selling my Avalanche tokens, but I'm like starting to rotate my funds away from Avalanche because Phantom has done really, really well, and so has all these other L1s, right? I mean, just look at my watch list, right? I mean, these are all like L1s or L2s that I'm interested in, and they're all green. So you have to get into the mindset of like just because you hold a token, like doesn't mean that it's okay. Like it's not okay to sell that token or rotate into other ecosystems, because I feel like psychologically it's kind of hard to like let's say you bought AVAX at $60, it's at $70, you're feeling you're up 20%, you're feeling good, but the next question is like where's my capital best deployed at? And that's like the answer to that question like only you can make for yourself, right? Like based off of your own research, based off of your own conviction. However, I often talk about how I'm not an ecosystem maxi, I'm a yield maxi. I go where the yields are and I go where the best opportunities are. And I think that's the best way to approach these markets, because if you become an ecosystem maxi, like think about like what Bitcoin and ETH maxis have been experiencing for the past like let's say like 6 months, right? They've just been in pain because everyone else is outperforming them even though like they're in crypto. So to start thinking about these rotations, because it's not like AVAX is the only L1 that you can farm at. There's Luna, there's Phantom that I mentioned, there's all other ecosystems that you can farm at, and like I mentioned, I think Luna definitely deserves to be a higher market cap than Avalanche in the long term. But in the short term, I do expect Avalanche to outperform, if that makes sense, right? Like whether just because I'm bullish Avalanche in the short term doesn't necessarily mean that I'm super bullish Avalanche long term. I'm just an Avalanche because I like making money, and Avalanche is going to give me free money due to Avalanche Rush. So let's kind of go over, and also in terms of other ecosystems, I know people have been like talking about like, come on, you got to bring up Cosmos, Osmosis, it's the best thing ever. Yes, I hear you. And just because I don't talk about things on my channel doesn't mean I'm not farming in other ecosystems, right? But yeah, I'm gonna have Cryptocito on the channel next week to talk about like why Cosmos has been outperforming, why it's been so great, and what the other farming opportunities out there. Because for those that don't know, Terra is built on the Cosmos SDK, right? So it doesn't make sense that Cosmos is a lower market cap than Terra. The answer to the question, I guess Cryptocito will answer that for me. But like I mentioned, I am super bullish the Terra ecosystem, so I kind of just want to go over some ecosystems, or I guess some applications that's coming on Terra that I'm most excited for. Because there's a lot of applications coming into Terra, but how do you filter through all the noise and figure out like what am I most bullish on? So one thing I'm super bullish on is the Nexus Protocol, right? So for those that have been following me, you know that if you have been staking Anchor on the governance tab for like Anchor.com or app.anchor or whatever the URL is, you're eligible to get an airdrop for Nexus. Hopefully, hopefully I still get it even though I'm in the US, but hopefully they stay true to their word and they do airdrop, but that's what they said. And the cool thing about Nexus is that you can essentially put your Anchor position on Nexus and it'll automatically, I guess, if you're about to get liquidated, it'll like automatically adjust your position so you won't get liquidated, right? This is one of the reasons Luna dumped 80% in May, because people were borrowing funds on Anchor to like long Luna, and when it dumped 50%, it liquidated a bunch of people, which caused like a cascade of liquidations, like forced selling, and which was one of the reasons that we were able to pick up Luna for so cheap back in July. And also UST Mirror Vault, it'll also generate yield by operating an automated delta neutral yield strategy for UST Mirror Finance. So this is kind of like what I've been going over in the Terra ecosystem, right? Like how to earn 50% APY on, I guess, in the Luna ecosystem, and like this tab here, right? But essentially, Nexus will like instead of like you doing all these steps manually, you can deposit UST on Nexus. It'll automatically do it for you, right? And they'll probably take some fees or whatever, but it's still a pretty good application. The next thing I'm really excited for is Mars. Mars is a money market, and the cool thing about Mars is that it's going to allow you to use like different types of assets as collateral. So think about, like using AUST as collateral on Mars to borrow more dollars and redepositing it into Anchor, stuff like that. And I think there was a video on Donku R's channel, and someone said that, if you deposit UST onto Mars, you'll be able to form Mars tokens, right? So it's not out yet. It's not the application's not live. It's going to come out sometime in Q4, but I'm super, super bullish the Mars protocol. And lastly, Astroport. This is going to be the DEX in the automated market maker for Terra ecosystem. And I'm super bullish this as well. And keep in mind, just because I'm bullish the protocols doesn't necessarily mean I'm bullish the token, right? Those are two separate things. An application can be great, but I don't have to be bullish the token. For example, I like Mirror, but I don't own any Mirror because I don't like the tokenomics. I love AAVE. I don't own any AAVE because I'm not a fan of the tokenomics. And also, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is Alice, right? This was announced recently at DeFi Alpha in New York. It's going to be a payments application, right? A mobile application that's going to allow you to spend your UST. So think of this as like a Venmo or like any other payments app where you can send or receive money to other people like this, right? And you'll be earning 9.3% on Alice because it utilizes UST, right? And instead of 20%, it's 9.3% because they have to go through fees. I'm sure they take some, margin, for them to be profitable and whatnot. But that's pretty crazy, right? I mean, think about like a payments application that you can pay people with and earn 9.3% on your dollars. I'm not really sure how this, I'm not really sure how they can bypass the SEC on this, because I know the SEC hates when people can earn decent yield on dollars. But they did announce that it's coming in November, so I'm just gonna take their word for it and just wait until they come out. And they also announced a metal debit card, right? So imagine you're earning 9.3% on your dollars, and you can spend that with a debit card in the US. Buy some coffee. That's pretty crazy, right? And this is one of the reasons I'm super bullish the Terra ecosystem, because there's real world use cases. Sure, you can be bullish ETH, Avalanche, Phantom, whatever blockchain that you're a fan of, but it doesn't really have a real life use case, right? It's only for crypto natives that know what they're doing. But if the Terra ecosystem can create applications, real world applications like this, then you can kind of think about, there's going to be more demand for UST. And if you think about the tokenomics of Luna, more demand for UST, Luna gets burnt, right? And this is one of the reasons this is my humble opinion, not financial advice, but I think Luna is going to be a top 5 token. All right. I don't know when, but that's my bullish bias. So to wrap it up, super bullish Luna for Q4, Columbus 5, amazing. And for, I guess, Avalanche, not bearish, but not particularly super bullish either. And, even despite all the FUD, it's kind of been putting in higher highs and higher lows. So, it's something to take into account. But hopefully this is a useful video. Maybe I think generally I'm slightly more bearish than a lot of people, just because I have a more conservative approach when it comes to taking profits and whatnot. But I think my conservative approach can help people because when you're on social media, there's people throw out these ridiculous price targets, which isn't necessarily good for people newer to crypto. So thank you guys for watching, and have fun farming out there. If you want to know how I'm farming in all these ecosystems, check out the private Discord. Link is in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one and have fun farming.